In the shamanic tradition, ancestors, it's always important to honor the ancestors. For one thing, the ancestors gave us life, and in shamanism, life is so precious, so being grateful to the ancestors for the life that they've given, also the teachings that are passed down from generation to generation. And I don't know any shamans who would not start a ceremony with honoring the ancestors. It would be seen as extremely disrespectful. And it's also believed that there are ancestors in what in shamanism we call the middle world, which is this world here. So before I came here this morning, I asked permission of the ancestors of this land if it's okay for me to come and be here and talk in this group. And I teach for a foundation called the Foundation for Shamanic Studies here. And years ago, the foundation brought a Uchi shaman from Siberia who was in his 90s to Westerbeck Ranch here in Sonoma. And Grandfather Duvan, he started studying shamanism when he was 17, and he was in his 90s when I met him. So, you know, he had quite a presence. And he spent days introducing himself to every tree. And and before every ceremony, he said in Uchi, we had translators, so we knew what he was saying in his ceremonies. But as he started every ceremony, he apologized to the ancestors of the land that he did not know their ways, and please not punish him for working in a different way that the California Indians did, because he was coming from a different land. He would say to the spirits, we heard this from the translator, he would say, "They're making me do this." Please don't punish me. But, you know, to honor, you know, the ancestors, they lived here. They loved the land. And so here, you know, now in this time of travel, you have people from shamanic traditions traveling all over the place, coming to do ceremonies on land where for, you know, hundreds of years these ancestors have been doing these ceremonies. So to walk in from an innocent place that they're not here, still protecting the land and working spiritually, is a real lack of respect. And I found a really long time ago in workshops, if I was finding a lot of obstacles, like weather to the point where it was becoming dangerous for people to be on the land, things that were becoming really big obstructions, if I would just stop the work and honor the ancestors and ask the ancestors for help, all the obstacles would disappear. So, you know, the thing about shamanism is a system of direct revelation. So when Llewellyn said I don't like to answer questions, it's because from a shamanic tradition, you get your own answers. You don't ask somebody else for an answer. And so I didn't really have anybody teach me about how important it was to honor the ancestors where I was working. I found from experience and just bringing groups to different places that things went a lot better if I spoke to the ancestors and talked to them first. So there's just a real tradition of honoring the people who have lived on the land for a certain period of time, and that we're all working in partnership together, and to bring them in, invite them into the circle. It's important in all shamanic cultures. I can't think of any shamanic cultures that would not start off anything without honoring the ancestors first.
Yeah. Because human beings are so beautiful. If you were allowed one moment, I was given this experience when I was 22 of seeing what human beings are really like. And they are so beautiful. They are so full of light. I always say it is the great mystery is not that we are full of light, but that we are not allowed to experience it very much. If you all knew what you were really like, 90% of your problems would dissolve, and you'd think, why am I wasting my time with this worry, with that anxiety, with that problem? Because human beings are incredibly beautiful. And when a human being turns towards the Spirit, towards God, that light becomes magnified. They are really unbelievably beautiful. And then when the light of different human beings works together for the sake of the whole, which is part of the work we are trying to do here, then it is a whole other dimension of light upon light. It is very, very beautiful. It is really... Something starts to sing, something. There is like an ancient remembrance, which for me belongs to the ancient remembrance of the world, when, in a way, this was the most natural way to live. When the light of the human being, the spiritual part of the human being, was a natural part of life, when everything was sacred, when everything you did included that dimension. And then it is like to remember what it was when life was like that, when there was this, I think you spoke about joy, when there was this pure note of joy that ran through life. Yeah, then...
Yeah, well, so walking in this room and, coming from one tradition and meeting with another tradition.
We're all one.
Certainly, but I felt challenged here today.
Challenged? Why?
Challenged because I feel that there is a need to come with a certain attitude of focusing on that light that we're sharing.
But you are that light.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
How can you focus on what you are? You are. It's to forget everything else, to leave it all. Like when you leave your shoes at the door of the temple. You just leave it.
It really has to do, again, with your perception as you walk into a room. When I was in my early 20s, I had a near-death experience. And I went to who I call God. It was this great light, and I stood in front of God. And I realized at that moment it was really a powerful experience for me. Hitler was standing next to me in front of God. And God loved us exactly the same. There was no difference between the two of us. Love is love. And it was such a transformative experience for me to realize that in the universe there is no recognition of anything except light and love, and that's all that's recognized. And so my husband and I have, we always kind of walk into rooms and he'll say something like, God, isn't the energy great in this room? And I'll feel like, God, isn't the energy terrible in this room? I mean, it all has to do with your perception, and it's what you experience and what you want to experience. But the bottom line is there is only light and love. It's what you end up choosing to experience. So for me, it's about setting an intention to always see that light in other people. And that intention, once again, creates action.
Thank you. I've been reading your book, Llewellyn, about spiritual power, and you speak about the web of light, and then you speak about how that is, it's an energetic, as I understand it, web of light, and that it needs to be anchored.
Yeah, through us.
Pardon?
Through us, yeah.
Through us. And that is where my question is. How do we do it?
By connecting consciously to the oneness of life. You see, I give a little bit of background. In order to make any step in spiritual evolution, you can sit down if you like, because you can't film me from behind, and now we're into this. In order to make any step in spiritual evolution, there has to be a container. And in our tradition, that's one of the reasons you do spiritual practices, is actually you create an inner container. And in many traditions, this container is a body of light that you create so you can then inhabit this body of light and then begin to have experiences in the realm of light. As I always say, the best little book for that is The Secret of the Golden Flower, translated by Wilhelm. It's a Taoist classic. So there has to be a container that is created, but it's only a container. What actually happens is, of course, what you do with this container, like any container. Now,